They vanished so completely, even their name was forgotten for nearly 3,000 years. No tombs, no legends, just whispers buried in stone until a peasant in Turkey struck clay tablets while plowing his field. What followed was one of archaeology's greatest detective stories. The discovery unveiled a once mighty empire lost to time. The Hittites, warriors, kings, and diplomats who challenged the greatest powers of the ancient world only to fade into oblivion. Long before Rome, before even classical Greece, there rose a people in the Anatolian highlands. Around 1600 BCE, in the rugged terrain of modern-day Turkey, the Hittites carved out a kingdom from a patchwork of warring tribes. Their capital, Hattusa, wasn't just a city. It was a fortress of ambition, surrounded by massive stone walls and gates adorned with lions and sphinxes. These were no mere barbarians. The Hittites built archives, treaties, and laws. They mastered iron before their rivals. They moved armies with precision and wielded diplomacy like a blade. At their peak, they didn't just survive between empires, they stood beside them. But their beginnings were anything but certain. The first Hittite king we know of, Labarna, was more warlord than monarch. His successors took his name like a badge of honor. Labarnas and Hattusilis, storming city after city and a brutal path of conquest. It was Hattusili the first who laid the foundations of the empire by seizing Aleppo and subduing Mesopotamian rivals. But his own family turned on him. On his deathbed, he disowned his grandson, calling him evil, a chilling curse in a clay tablet. That grandson, Marsilii, would go on to sack Babylon itself in a bold strike that shocked the ancient world. And then, he was murdered by his brother-in-law. The Hittite court was a viper's nest of betrayal and ambition. Kings fell to coups, queens ruled from the shadows. But out of this chaos, one ruler would rise to greatness, Suppiluliuma. Suppiluliuma was not content with survival, he aimed for supremacy. In one of history's earliest spy stories, he sent his son in disguise into enemy lands to gather intelligence before launching his campaigns. With cunning and force, he crushed the Mitanni kingdom and expanded Hittite control across Syria. Even the mighty Egyptians felt his presence. When Pharaoh Akhenaten died, an Egyptian queen, likely his widow, wrote to Suppiluliuma with an unthinkable plea: "Send me your son, I will make him king." A foreign prince on the throne of Egypt. It was unprecedented. Suppiluliuma agreed. But the prince was murdered en route, possibly by the future pharaoh. The Hittites responded with fury, ravaging Egyptian-held cities. But the cost was high. Prisoners from these battles brought plague. Back to Hattusa. Suppiluliuma died. His successors fell like dominoes. Still, the empire endured. Under Muwatalli II, the Hittites met Egypt in one of the largest chariot battles ever fought, the Battle of Kadesh. Over 5,000 war chariots thundered across the Syrian plains. The Egyptians claimed victory, but the Hittites held the ground. It was a stalemate, but a spectacular one. Years later, the two superpowers would do something even rarer than war. They made peace. The world's first known peace treaty was carved in stone between Ramesses II and Hattusili III. A treaty not just of ink, but of legacy. Its replica still hangs in the United Nations headquarters today. But even diplomacy could not shield the Hittites from the storm to come. By 1200 BCE, the ancient world was unraveling. Mysterious raiders, the so-called Sea Peoples, were tearing through the eastern Mediterranean. Trade collapsed, cities burned. The Hittite Empire, stretched thin and beset by famine, disease, and internal revolt, was hit hard. And then silence. Hattusa was abandoned, its archives buried for centuries. No one even knew the Hittites had existed. It wasn't until the late 19th century that archaeologists stumbled upon ruins in central Turkey. The clay tablets unearthed there spoke a language no one could read until a Czech linguist, Bedřich Hrozný, cracked the code in 1915. The Hittites were reborn in our understanding. Their lost empire rising from the dust. Today, they challenge our assumptions about early civilization. They were not footnotes to Egypt or Mesopotamia, they were their rivals. The Hittites remind us that even the greatest empires can vanish. Their triumphs buried beneath time. Their story is silenced until someone digs deep enough to hear them again.